And welcome to The Price of Business. I am Bill Knapik, sitting in for Kevin Price. You may know me from Successful Living with Bill Knapik, Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. and Real Estate Matters with Stuart Title at 1 o'clock on Saturdays on 100.7 FM. And then again, you may not know me, but tune into those shows, and you will. And we are on The Price of Business. Portions of this show are sponsored by Alternatives, Behavior, Health, and Chris Kidd Enterprises. We're going to get started right away. We have an addiction expert on the phone from California. He is Dr. Adi Jaffe. Doctor, thank you, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to an addiction expert. So let's first of all tell people about your practice and what you're doing.
Sure. My practice is called Alternatives, and one of the things that makes us that and gives us the name is we've decided to put aside some of the things that we believe are barriers to people getting help. Specifically, one of the things that we put aside is the Alcoholics Anonymous sort of portion of 99% of treatment in the United States, and focus on the evidence-based, research-supported tools that help people recover from substance use issues, whether they're drugs or alcohol, but also with many other issues, so sleep, ADHD and attention problems, obsessive-compulsive thinking, anxiety, and things of that nature.
Tell us, as we're talking about when you have drug addiction and then even certain compulsive behavior, how is it that you help people? Are there common threads, Doctor, that run through all these addictive behaviors?
Absolutely. So, typically what we end up finding, I would say in essentially all cases, is there's a mixture of biological causes, environmental causes, and then experiential ones, things people have gone through in their life, whether that's trauma or learning about substance use or relationship to it earlier on in life from from family, parents, et cetera, kind of those internal core relationships. And so what we try to do, and I think we do a pretty successful job of it, is we try to get into those core issues and figure out of those three things, environment, experience, and biology, where each one of our clients sits. So what element is most important in their life, in their relationship to substances, and where are the places that we can make the most change. And so we have a lot of tools to affect change in each one of those areas. But yeah, I would say, those common threads probably go even far beyond just substance abuse, right? Everybody listening to the show has experienced anxiety or experienced depression or at least, negative mood at some point. And we can kind of feel that there's a part of that where it's our body that is causing a change, and part of that is the environment and the life we're living in. When we get really, really stressed out at work, we're more likely to struggle with depression or anxiety, et cetera.
That's right. And tell us, what is it about this field that got you involved and where you have this passion to help people like this?
Yeah, I have my own history with drugs, and I struggled with them for a number of years until kind of finding my way back, back into society. And so when I found my way back into school after all of that, that became my focal point, is how do I prevent people from going as far down as I did, and how do I figure out a way to help people so they don't struggle in the same way.
Very interesting. And would you tell people recently, and of course we see opiate addiction and things like that, especially we've had Prince pass away and celebrities, sure. Movie stars and rock stars and musicians and everyone. It seems like that seems to be a thread. And as far as the Prince thing, that apparently there were opiates found in the autopsy. Is that correct?
As of right now, the toxicology reports I haven't seen come back, but there are more and more reports that he had struggled with an opiate overdose on that plane that had to be diverted so you could get a shot of naloxone, what they're calling that life-saving drug. It's called naloxone, and it reverses an overdose from opiates. But, even beyond Prince, Prince is a horrible example, obviously, but even beyond Prince, we have Philip Seymour Hoffman, died from heroin use just, about a year ago now. And we see this all the time in treatment. Kids who start out with prescription drug problems and then either get so heavily involved in the prescription drugs that they move over to opiates, like heroin, morphine, things like that, where they're actually injecting. And even if not, OxyContin and some of the opiate medications that we have on the market are as strong, if not stronger, than heroin. People are using fentanyl, which is essentially 100 times stronger than morphine and heroin. And so we're definitely seeing this resurgence of over the last 10 years. So it's not that new, but of heroin problems, which we're kind of gone there in the early 2000s.
Right, and even when you're talking about prescription drugs, it seems like those would have even though they're abused and overused, perhaps they would have quality control. But when you're talking about something like heroin, cocaine, and things like that, I guess there's a clinical definition of heroin and cocaine. But I guess I've never bought any, but I guess that on the street you don't know what you're getting. So there could be all kinds of things.
There was just a batch. Actually, I'm having a hard time remembering if it was here locally in Los Angeles or otherwise in the country. But there was a batch of heroin that was killing people because it was mixed with fentanyl. Now, fentanyl, like I said, is a much, much stronger drug. And so, whoever did it was thinking, hey, if I mix this up, I don't have to have really good heroin and people will get really, really, really high. Yeah, the problem is they can also die pretty easily. So, look, drug dealing is not an exact science. Breaking Bad made it look like everybody who makes drugs does it in a nice meth lab somewhere. That's not necessarily the truth, right? The goal is to make money. And so when you're relying on those markets, it's a problem. But as Prince showed us, as many other, prescription drugs are a bad enough problem by themselves if you get addicted to them, right? I mean, opiates were also a huge success for medicine, so I'm not trying to say that opiates are bad inherently, but definitely a drug where if you take it over a long period of time, I don't know if you've ever known anybody who had cancer or had any chronic pain or a severe accident, you take opiates for an extended period of time, and you feel very, very bad when you stop taking them. And sometimes that's a big enough drive to make somebody go, my doctor told me I can't have more, but I'm feeling really bad every time I stop these, so let me go look for it elsewhere. And when that happens, we find people who are pretty badly addicted to a drug that, can be a lifelong problem.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Perhaps on this segment we can help someone. What is the advice you'd give someone that has an injury and they're taking some kind of painkiller and they're enjoying that? It's solving the problem of the pain. But how do they prevent? What's the mindset, or what should they do to prevent themselves from getting into trouble where they rely on this all the time and become addicted? What would you tell them?
That's a really good question. Thanks for asking that. One of the first things is when people are taking the medication as prescribed for pain, we find much lower rates of addiction. What starts happening is, you pointed out, and they like it, sometimes what we have to do is learn how to deal with discomfort in life in general. This is not just an addiction lesson, but it's a general life lesson, right? Discomfort will come. The question is, how are you going to deal with it? And so my recommendation is talk to your doctor as the pain is subsiding, if it is, and make sure that you're reducing the dose of the medication. Doctors like to make their patients feel comfortable, and so they'll give people sometimes the strongest pain medication that they can so that the client won't feel pain. That's not necessarily always the best solution. It can be a good solution to reduce your reliance on pain medication, even if that means a slight resurgence of pain. We're actually finding that trying to control pain, especially something like chronic pain, if you're dealing with it, with opiates can actually cause the opposite problem. It can cause this thing called hyperalgesia, where you actually feel more pain than you would if you weren't on the opiates. And so not relying on these medications to be the end-all, be-all, but, use them moderately to control the pain is one of the biggest pieces of advice. Indeed. The other one that I would give is this. We've gotten into this place in this country where once somebody has a problem with drugs and alcohol, we toss them into this drug addict bucket, and we feel like they're going to be stuck there forever. That's just not true. And so what I would urge people to do is, if you start feeling like you might be struggling with a problem like this, reach out for help as soon as you possibly can. There are solutions that don't necessarily require, lifelong attendance of meetings and going to rehab and things of that nature. But if you start looking when it's too late, then sometimes you get to the point where you need those more extreme measures.
Very nice. Doctor, would you tell people how they can reach you should they want to reach out for some help?
Sure. So the website is addictionalternatives.com, and the number is 888-532-9137. Again, that's 888-532-9137. 9137. And if we can help in any way, just let us know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adi Jaffe. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to The Price of Business. I am sitting in for Kevin Price. I am Bill Knapik. We're coming right back after this.